Hello, I'm not expecting anyone particularly watching this, but I thought, I've just been to East versus West 6 and I did a number of sketches, and I thought perhaps some people might like to see me polishing them up. And so, and then I could at the same time try out this live thing. So people have sometimes said, why don't you try and sketch while people are watching? So here are some of the sketches I've done. This one I polished up at home because I wasn't really able to do it. It went too fast. I'm sorry, Ray. I really would have liked you to win. This one, on the other hand, lasted a good old time, so I was able to both paint Corey and Farid and Tullier and Paul Linn. So that's Craig down there and Paul Linn here, and then there's another guy that I don't know who was down there. And so yeah, just trying to capture the moment. And one person's watching, very nice. And then there's this one, which again, I will be trying to make it a little bit more finished. Unfortunately, I managed to pour black ink on Barbara when I was in the plane trying to improve it. And in the plane, of course, the pressure in the plane was higher, so suddenly the paint pen just started to bleed all over the place, but I kind of tidied it up a bit. Yeah. An attempt at Monster Michael Todd, but yeah, I will improve them. And this is kind of how I remember Engen just kneeling at the stage, just watching in excitement. This was on the airplane over. That's Tony Christensen. All I could see of him over the plane seat, and then we've got Mr. Announcer Neil Pickup. This is Effie and his opponent. So hopefully I will be able to make them better just from video information. And that's one of the judges, no, refs. And here we have Corey sitting in the pews, the seats. Yeah, definitely need to improve them a bit. This is, you can try and work out who that is. Needs an improvement. This was who I was travelling with. As was, where is he? Tony. And yeah, Monster. So I'm going to just try and see if I can improve these pictures a bit. See, this is one I worked on yesterday. Doug Erlich and Dear Ray. So let's see. And what's her name? If you do have any questions, you can ask. I'll see if I can actually answer them. Yeah, so this is the first time I've tried this, so I'm not expecting very much. So I was at, as I say, I was live at East versus West 6, sitting in the front row, and actually kind of doing my own, having my own challenge, trying to see if I could actually draw the people who were competing, or anyone sitting around that I felt were interesting to paint and draw. So I was pleased to meet a number of the arm wrestlers. I had a funny moment with Ray after the match. I mean, he'd sounded so confident before the match, and kind of rightly so. He was very good. And after the match, or after the competition, he came up to me and said, "I'm sorry." I was like, "For what?" And yeah, "For losing, I lost," he said, and gave me a hug, and it was kind of sweet. So he needed a bit of comfort, which I was happy to give him. Right, so where am I? Right, so that is that. To release this from the workspace. There we go. Over there. If you have any questions about the experience of being at East versus West 6, then you can ask. Meanwhile, I'll try and see if I can do some parting up of pictures. Let's see if I'm satisfied with this one. Doug Erlich. What did you all expect? Who did you expect to win this match? I'm so used to seeing our dear Ray win that it was a bit of a surprise to see him so overpowered. But as we talked about afterwards, you know, he did something similar to Ryan, and it was the best thing that could have happened to Ryan. So who knows? Maybe it'll be the best thing that happened to Ray too. But I really do like how much family feel there is about the arm wrestling community. I wouldn't say that I'm in the fold at all, but yeah, it was nice. I mean, I got the opportunity to meet a number of people, including Robert Baxter, who is a lovely guy, really gentle and nice, sweet to talk to. I did also sit and talk to John, Mr. Brezink himself, and I really regret not doing more, you know, not making more of it, because I had the opportunity to ask him some good questions, but I didn't want to disturb him. Sometimes it's difficult to know. It's not that I'm starstruck, I just, you know, when you don't know somebody, you just know of them, then you can be a little bit concerned that you overstep your boundaries, regardless of whether they're known or not known. And it plays a little bit into my nature is a little bit more, you know, I have self-confidence, but I have a little bit of a sort of, I'm not sure about whether people want to talk to me. So that plays out a little bit. And I mean, to be honest, I had a really good conversation with John on Zoom back in March last year about doing a portrait of him, and it was easy to talk to him there. So I don't know what exactly. Yeah, there were some, again, yeah, don't know what I want to see, but if he's like a little bit unsure about whether he wants to get involved in this portrait palaver, then maybe that plays a role. And he initially really wanted to and was really honoured. He said that I wanted to do a portrait of him, which was really nice. But I think he was also concerned about where he was going to put his energy and familiarity and lack of familiarity. He didn't want to spread himself too thinly, and maybe there's a suggestion I came with that wouldn't suit him. And Renee, of course, has to be okay with all these things, because that's what it's like when you're in a partnership with somebody. You have to take them into consideration too, and I totally respect that. I'm not happy with the idea that some people just do whatever they want and then upset their partners. So that is fine. It's funny, I'm watching myself draw, and it's kind of there's a little bit of a lag, so I'm seeing what I have done a few seconds after I do it. I'm drinking a cup of tea, and now I can see myself drinking a cup of tea. Okay. Well, I think I'll leave this one for now, because it's much more finished than a number of the other ones. Now I'll see if I can find Barbara. If it's been uploaded yet. Oh, this looks like it. Possibly. Oh. Oh, maybe it's not uploaded properly yet. So yeah, should have maybe thought of that before I started this, which videos have been uploaded now. So when I talked to John on the Zoom meeting back in March, I told him, because I'm pretty strong. Some of you may know that I'm pretty strong, and I've got a strong hand. And on Zoom, I said to John, but look at my wrist; it's so small. And his response was, well, you've got a big forearm. You can't see it from this angle, and big hand. And at first I was like, oh, that's nice. Maybe there's potential. And then I started to wonder whether it was just because, the closer you are with your hand on Zoom, the bigger it looks. Maybe he had misjudged. But so I asked him when I saw him, and he's like, well, you're quite long from there to there, and that's good for arm wrestling. So that's what I've learned. I actually told him that I have managed to do a gripper of 60 kilos with just 2 fingers, these two especially, maybe 30 clicks. And there's a video with me talking to Robb, and I actually do about 34 clicks with just the 2 fingers, maybe 30, maybe the last couple I was a little bit, this finger started to curl a bit. But John was like, oh wow. But yeah, I'm just wondering that myself, if that's right. Anyway, and another thing I asked him was what he made of Ongarbayev compared to Erlich, and he said that he thought they were of a similar standard. It's funny, watching it live, it's not the same as watching it online where you get commentary and close-ups and stuff like this, so it was really nice to see the match again afterwards, and it really was a pretty amazing match. I wasn't totally upset with him losing, and I don't know why. I think maybe because it was a completely respectful fight. You know, it could have gone either way. John absolutely was somehow able to curl Erlich's wrist, and that's no small thing. And John, I mean, I remember John mentioning at one point that maybe because of the fact that people are actually betting on you, that maybe he would need to try and oblige and just win as quickly as he can. But that's not John, and I remember thinking that would be a shame if he ends up having to just, you know, do the best move against that person and just repeat it, instead of trying new things, because that is what made John great. It wasn't that he had one move that was better than everyone else's and he just did that. He actually, maybe I should show my face a bit while I'm not drawing. So his rise to greatness was his lack of fear of losing, and in a way you could see that with his match against Erlich, because I think it looked quite convincing that he could just go over, a bit like what he did to Oleg, and just wait and become this endurance puller. And I can't help but think that in the long run he needs to have more tools again, like he used to have, with the possibility of taking initiative like in the past. And now that he's going to be up against Dennis, that's maybe even more necessary, because Dennis apparently has great endurance. So if they're both just waiting on the other one, taking initiative, it might be at John's peril, from what I understand. But feel free to tell me what you think. Maybe you know better. Well, there's a very good chance. So very good chance that I could be wrong, but that's what I remember hearing something about. So I'm going to start watching Effie versus Eidbeck. You know, I really like the fact that, you know, at first you're just like, oh, you just want to see the guys that you know from YouTube. I'm really glad that Engen is not just trying to pander to popularity and is getting all these other people involved in the competition who you wouldn't necessarily otherwise hear of because they don't have a YouTube channel. So that is good, and it's always fun to see the people you know, and thankfully John so far has been at all the events, and therefore somebody that I know and respect is there to see. Disappointed he lost, but what a great match. It was so diverse and so changing. It was almost like a real wrestling match. And actually, I thought also Ungerbaev and Michael Todd was a mesmerizing match. The way that Ungerbaev just kept, it's almost like he was able to turn his hand this way and then that way. It just kept rolling to keep the momentum, and it was actually pretty impressive of Michael to withstand that, because I've been to arm wrestling training a bit this last year, and there is this, I was told that it's very important to try and keep momentum going. That is how it's very hard to stop momentum once it starts, and seemed like Michael was quite good at stopping the momentum, and Ungerbaev was pretty good at coming with new momentum and seeing what he could achieve, and amazing achievement for him and Erlich. And I thought Erlich's speech was perfect. I really liked the respect he was showing in his speech. He totally understood that he was in the presence of somebody pretty great. Right, I'm trying to watch Effie. I can see if I can find the pose that he was in when I started to sketch him, because then I can continue the sketch and then I can show you as it develops if you want to see it. So he's just won the first round, which means he's going to swap sides, which is no use. That is one of the hard things about doing sketches. You know, if there are 3 rounds and you start drawing, then the chances are you could end up just having somebody on the one side once. You start on the left and then we go to the right. Yeah, if you don't manage to start the drawing in time, yeah, it's just, you have to be very fast. You have at most 2 short periods to catch them in, because on the wrong side for one of the matches. Okay, he's back on the right side. Oh darn, camera's very close, can't see his legs. I quite liked his stance, Effie. So I'll try and remember that then. The camera doesn't seem to be in any way favouring the drawing that I'm doing. Okay, they're getting strapped up. Let's see if we get another chance to capture them. If you're watching at all, then feel free to say hi. Because I'm new to this and I don't actually know whether it's working unless somebody says hi. Come on, zoom out. I want to see a bit more of. No. 3 love to Effie. What a total destruction of his opponent. Go back to start. Better chance I'll find something. Jerky. Kazakhstan. So that was one Kazakhstani that didn't win his match. Well, this is crap. Did anyone else watch? Did anyone else go to East versus West to watch this? I was sitting in the absolute front with my sketch stuff. Had a perfect view, and you know, Engen, he would on odd occasions he would get totally involved in a match and just crouch down in front of the stage watching, and turned around to us and said, "Isn't this amazing?" And I would have loved to have tried after pulling Rebecca Todd, but I didn't have the courage to ask her because I thought she probably wouldn't want to. And it's not because I think I have anything any way of winning over her, but just she might be able to give me some tips because we're about the same size, same age, same gender, believe it or not. Come on, Effie. Oh, this could be good enough stance from a drawing. Not perfect, but see if it gets any better. 350-ish. My friend who came and watched East versus West with me, she's a journalist, but she doesn't have much knowledge of arm wrestling except for me ranting on about John Brasink, which there's good reason for. She came to the event and she said, you know, it's just like being at an exam. You have such a short time to win or lose. I mean, it's not like a whole football match where you have several, have 90 minutes to try and get the most goals. Here, you know, it can be over in a split second each round. If you don't quite make the right move, if you go inside when you should have gone outside, or mistime things, and I can see why the perfect storm is a good name for somebody who is good at timing things. And John's a funny one because at the same time as him having such a good knowledge and sense of when to do things, he also has this drive and need to challenge himself. He doesn't seem to feel like he has really beaten an opponent until he's beaten them in their best spot. So, you know, it's like saying, well, you're only as strong as your weakest link, and he just happens to have a thumb that's 2 or 3 times the size of a normal thumb, and so maybe he feels like that's a huge advantage, and he can make use of it to win, but maybe he also feels like it's a bit unfair, and wants to see if he can actually beat people without just using his I was going to say his thumb, but his strength, which is often somebody else's. His thumb can direct a match somehow, and he maybe feels it's cheating if he just relies on his humongous genetic thumb. So when he was pulling Erlich, he did say something about should we go inside, which probably cost him the match, trying to do that. But, you know, if John had not done that sort of thing, he would probably never have gotten so good all round as he has. He would be you know, he would have one or two great moves, and the other great thing that has probably benefited him massively is his decision to become an airplane mechanic and get all these free trips around the world, so that somebody in Russia is like, I think I could beat that John Bosanquet. He's not everything he's hyped up to be. Then John's like, okay, see you Tuesday. If it's going to be like that. And then he goes there and wipes the floor with them and flies back, you know, to no great costs to him. And you know, as an artist, we artists can sometimes feel like, oh, you know, it's hard to both have a day job and spend time on art that you want to do. And it kind of also does perhaps touch a nerve on me, because I have a little bit of a thing like that, you know. I'm an artist and I have a little bit of job on the side, but maybe I shouldn't be so afraid of getting a day job that could benefit my art more. To see if I can make that work. So John is inspiring in many ways and challenging too. Doesn't look like I'm going to be able to get an Effie comic pose from the video that I want to need to finish his portrait, but maybe I can get enough. Can't be greedy. It was really like being an exam myself, sitting there drawing. So I did an interview with Zurab, asked him a little bit about his match with John, and understandably he was coming with his point of view of the match, but also acknowledging John's a GOAT for a reason. But that interview is on my channel too, so you can see that if you want. And I also came with a bag of Danish salt licorice, and gave him one. He wondered whether I was going to try and poison him, since I was a John Bosanquet fan, which of course I didn't need to, because he lost anyway. We also joked that the strong salt licorice would make him stronger, and he pretended he was going to pour the whole thing down his throat, because getting stronger is the name of the game. The name of the game. Okay, I have found a pose that is reasonable for my drawing of Effie. So I'm going to turn this down and see if I can sketch it for you while you're watching. And you know, I do feel like I'm an exam now, because I have to try and not ruin what I've got, and see if I can get Effie to appear on my sheet of paper here. Okay, so he has a little bump there on the forehead, like most people do, and he's got his hair here. These are posca pens, which are opaque. They don't, you know, once you paint on top of another colour, the new colour will be showing through, and the other one will be covered up, which is great for the most part, because it's easy to rectify a mistake. You know, if you do something, oops, and you're like, oh no, then you can just paint over it. Nice. The downside of it is that if you want to mix the colours, and you don't really mix. Oh, Effie has got a little tiny ski jump. Not really, but just tiny ski jump. nose. See, can you see how effective that was? That black line just vanished just like that. And there's a shadow. So I quite often use the purple. The thing about these pens is there's a limited number of colours, which means you have to make decisions. It's like creating a code of what is your shadow and what is your light. And my shadow is purple. Apparently. It can be blue or it can be brown, but I've kind of chosen purple for the most part. So we'll see if we get an Effie turning up on my paper or not. Well, you know, I am a fighter. I don't know if any of you saw my rap when I rapped out to John Brasink. That would have been so funny if I had been able to rap it live for somebody at East versus West, but didn't really feel like the opportunity arose, and a little bit shy I was to suddenly burst into rap. But I say, please hear me out. I'm a fighter at heart, and I ain't backing down till I produced some art about this airplane mechanic and family man who threw his hundreds of trophies and trinkets in the trash can. So there you go. That's part of my rap. And it would have been quite fun to try and grip up with John Brasink. You know, a funny thing my mum once said, when she knew that I was maybe going to meet him, that was in March last year, she said, well, don't arm wrestle him because he'll feel how strong you are and give it everything he's got and possibly hurt you. Which at least that was true, that he could, if he wanted to, hurt me, but somehow I don't think he'll be needing everything he's got to demonstrate his superiority. Oh, to turn on my computer. Batteries are running out. Oh, I lost it. If they come, Nick. Oh, and by the way, some of these are signed by the people I'm painting, so that's kind of cool. I didn't show John what I tried to do, draw of him, because I didn't think it was good enough. I'm not going to be very good. So like, yeah, I want to do a portrait of you, and this is how crap I am. So I didn't get his signature on it. But you know, maybe I'll just have to try and go to another arm wrestling event where he is. And you've got to fight for what you want. And possibly fail. And you know, failing is no bad thing as long as you know that you've done what you can. Try to achieve what you can. And if it doesn't work, then fair enough. And it's interesting, you know, it's been a long time since I really felt an anticlimax experience. You know, as a kid you get them a lot, you look forward to something and then it's over, and then you feel down over it being over. And you know, I had some hopes and wishes for this competition, that things I wanted to try and do, and speak to John about certain things, and I ended up I had golden opportunity I flipping sat next to him for a bit during the competition. But I didn't open my mouth that much. And maybe he appreciated that. But I did have some questions, and, you know, would have liked to have asked them, or even, you know, some various things that would have been quite nice to have done. Also, I wish I'd asked Rebecca if I could possibly try and pull her at the after pool, but she may still have said no, but then at least I would not have regretted not asking. Sometimes you just need to be have courage and be willing also to get the no. And what else? So since the competition, I've definitely had a bit of this sense of a war inside my head, trying to fight off frustration over certain things, and it just made it clear to me even more how much there can be a war in your mind. So if I was to get a bit philosophical about it, when people get down and depressed and things like this, you know, it's because they've lost the war in the mind, and there is really the chance of winning that war in the mind. Don't have to lose it. And I can tell, you know, so often I've had to be in a position of trying to win a war in my mind. Even such a thing as if you see my website is Leah Robb, LEAH You'll see some paintings that have to do with addiction, and thankfully I've never been in addiction myself to drugs and things like that. But I had a dear friend who was trying to get out of a heroin addiction, and I really, really cared for him. I really loved him, actually. I mean, I would, you know, just because of his, at the time, character, just seemed such a nice man, and I couldn't understand how he could be so nice when he had such a rough background. But when he relapsed and he seemed to forget all about what was great about our friendship, I can tell you that I was in complete turmoil, torture in my mind, and I really had to figure out, how do I stay alive and not end up becoming emotionally sick. Any of you, if anyone's watching, knows anything about being a close friend to an addict, will understand just how torturous it is. I mean, even everything that I thought we we had together. I mean, I'm not saying we weren't actually a couple, but we spent a lot of time together, and as far as I was concerned, it could have developed that way. He was in rehab, so what's not to like? And my mind, you know, I discovered that there was a little room up in my forehead where I could find some solace. If I just closed my eyes and looked up into my forehead, I could find a space where I could feel safe. But I also realized how important it was for me to reach out and get help. You know, make a phone call, go to a help center, all that kind of thing. Because in the mind, you know, if you're not well in your mind, then the rest of you suffers badly. So on a much smaller scale, living with regrets, you know, feeling that you missed opportunities, which I felt a little bit during this East versus West. then there is also a little bit of a torture and you want to kick yourself. But then you just get a sore shin. What good is that? What good is that? Just got to type something, just prick something. There we go. Oh, not again. So here's my iffy face coming alive. These panes are not exactly slimlined, which means in some ways you have to do the same with them as with spray paint. You know, apply the colour and then cut down on it afterwards by going on each side of it. Okay, so I can't see, this camera angle doesn't seem to allow me to see Effie with his shoulder forward, so I'm just having to trust my original sketch for that. Yeah. So leaving that to dry a bit and then reapplying the pink around to reduce the orange. So go like this. So when I was talking to John on Zoom all these months ago, we talked about our dads, because my dad was an art teacher, so I got art teaching at home, just like John and his dad arm wrestled. So I would be sitting drawing something and my dad would come over and look at it and he would say, the hands are too small, the legs are too short. I mean, it wasn't exactly something that would make you be like, yay, I'm going to be an artist. But again, resilience is such an important part of being able to be great at something. You know, you have to be able to cope with the knocks to keep moving forward, just like Rocky says. It's not how hard you can hit, it's how hard you can get hit. Keep moving forward, how much you can take, and keep moving forward. And my dad would give me some hits. In fact, on a completely other level, I loved to not arm wrestle my dad, but to wrestle my dad. And we also did finger fights, which was in a sense really stupid, but I could imagine if it didn't end up causing such a lot of damage to the fingers, you know, we basically would be trying to grab onto each other's fingers, and then if we got the better hand, then we'd try and twist the opponent, if you like. And it wasn't always the healthiest move, but it might also have strengthened my fingers. I definitely have crazy strong fingers. I've done a 3-finger pull-up, so that was these 2, I think, or these 2, and this finger on the left pull-up. Need to get some more power to my telephone. It's running dry. Oof. I can get this in here. Finding the lumber. Let's see if this can be done. We're going to suddenly fall again. Right. I've just been given a bit of advice from YouTube about how to do live recordings, which is nice of them. So where was I? Yes, finger wrestling my dad. He's definitely got arthritis, and I could imagine I've got it coming. Once in the school bus, you know, I was very into squeezing people's hands very hard when I realised how strong my fingers were. So whenever somebody wanted to give me a handshake, it wasn't very smart of me, but I kind of like, okay. And so I had this bus driver. We had a school bus that was quite private because we lived out in the sticks, out in the middle of nowhere. So I would sit in the front with the bus driver and one other pupil, and so I tried to give him a handshake once, and he had those big hands, and he squeezed and he squeezed, and he couldn't make me surrender. So he took both hands and was like, so I know he wasn't trying to be nice, and that hurt, if you wanted to know. Right, so where have we got this? Something like that. We got right. It's looking all right. Oops. He dominated the Kazakhstani, if that's what they're called. Strong performance. I'm looking forward to seeing Sandris versus Devon, and as much as I like Devon when he's not about to pull somebody, I think he's toxic when he does work up to a match. And I really want Sandris to win, because Devon was saying, you're just champion of an amateur league, and I think that's rude, quite frankly, because it's drugs tested, which I think is a good thing, and I have accepted that there is a lot of steroid use in arm wrestling, and I wish I didn't have to accept it. I would like it all to be much more natural, but it isn't. But yes, so I would love to see Sandris destroy Devon. That'd be nice. And Devon, I'd love to see you destroy somebody else. Don't worry, I'm not against you as such, but so does it look enough like him? Can I move on, do you think? So I certainly haven't done much about the other guys, so definitely need to do that. Oh yeah, and that must be Effie's other arm here. It's going to be a difficult one to get. Don't know where his arm is. Don't know if I'm going to be able to get that from the information I can find. I like that face. It kind of looks like him. Maybe he's got a flatter nose. Oops, don't use that one. That branding is not so dominant. Maybe a little bit more right. Okay, let's try and find the other guy. Zoom out, please. Crap. Spicy ginger and licorice tea. Oh, it's going to be a problem. I've made Effie look taller than the other guy, but it looks like it's the other way around when I'm looking at it now. So what did y'all think of Jerry versus, what's his name? Oh, the big guy. I was amazed that Jerry could just have somebody that big hanging off his arm. That was insane. And the other guy was pretty much, you know, under the table completely, but in a winning position. So it's allowed. But the guy who was sitting behind me, he was like, yeah, but Jerry's not really using his power, he's just using his structure, which is still insane to have that kind of structure to be able to hold somebody that big. It was just insane. I mean, that guy, his opponent had an arm that was like 3 times as thick as mine, maybe even more. And Corey West, he lost all his matches, both his matches, but they weren't easily lost. I mean, he gave a good fight. So I'm trying to find a good shot of Eidspick so that I can finish his portrait, and I can see that I've made him a bit shorter than Effie, and it's more the other way around, which is a bit of an issue. In the heat of the moment, I have misjudged. But it is also possible that there was a short moment where he was more bent down. So I might have to just go with that thought rather than change it completely. So how did anyone who might be watching get into arm wrestling? What was the inspiration? And what do you think of my plan to try and do a portrait of John Brasink? I'm not sure if he's going to be up for it. He was when I first mentioned it, but then he got kind of cold feet. But when I spoke to him the other day, he didn't sound negative at the thoughts when I explained it again. He's like, oh, okay. But it could just be his diplomatic way of just letting it wash by. So I thought, whether you believe in what it says in holy books, like for example the Bible, I think it's quite an interesting thing that one of the things it says is those who try to save their life will lose it, and those who lose it for my sake will save it. And I'm thinking of John's way of arm wrestling. He seems to, throughout his career, been willing to lose a match for the sake of getting better at arm wrestling on the whole, which has indeed made him defined his life as an arm wrestler. He has simply, I think through his apparent, it's a kind of humility to not care if you lose during practice. You know, some people they just can't bear the thought of somebody going home feeling like they're better than you. John seems to have not really cared. I mean, even losing to Erlich didn't seem to worry him too much. It seems like he's more focused on beating Dennis, which will be an insane achievement if he does beat him. Again, insane again. So I think that has also influenced his way of pulling Erlich. He didn't want to play it completely safe because then he wouldn't be getting the workout that he needs. But I absolutely don't believe he wanted, you know, it wasn't losing on purpose. Erlich did phenomenally. If I remember rightly, I gave him a slap over the wrist, or equivalent. It's like, naughty, naughty, beating the goat. I met Oleg. It's funny, when I came to the hotel first time round, then I met Oleg, I met Dennis, I met Zurab, and I met Ongarbayev. Ongarbayev was actually the first one I met. It's like all the people John is pulling or has pulled were the first people I kind of stumbled across. And Michael Todd too, who was on the list but seems to. So on hold. John's first round with Ongarbayev certainly went much faster than Michael's. But that's also one of the things, is that styles make matches. It doesn't mean so much, and that's actually one of the reasons why I was against Jerry getting, you know, coming from a period of not retirement but latency, to then suddenly claiming the title, because he's got such an unusual style that I think you should have to prove yourself over a few different matches with different pullers before you can start going for a title. That's my opinion. Now he's done 2. I actually said I think he should show consistency over 3 matches. Maybe that's too much, but before you start to pull for titles, because you could just be good against one particular style and somebody else might be able to counter that quite easily compared to the one that you were pulling, if they know your style. So the beginnings of a face are appearing. I can see that his jawline is further back, so I'm going to have to move his chin. Back, I tell you, back. And his ear, kind of parallel with his eyes. And that's it, it's pretty high. Oops. What else can we talk about? Oh, hello. Madao C of Ariet. Did you get a photo of your hand against Dennis's hand? I missed that one. But I did compare my thumb to John's thumb. I didn't get a photograph of it, unfortunately, but it's massive. Dennis, difficult to communicate with him, but I did say something to him, but I didn't compare my hand to his. Man, there were a lot of photo opportunities I missed that I kind of regretted. I would have liked to have actually video talked to Ray, because he's a cool guy, and also talked to Gabby after. She was a bit kind of like down over that loss, but she still signed the picture I did of her, which was nice of her, even with a smiley. Yeah, and I spoke to Babayev both before the match and after the match. Don't know how much I spoke to him, but I opened my mouth and said something, and he seemed also such a sweet guy. I was sorry to see him injured, but so was everyone. Poor Paul Linn. That was a really sad way to so-called win a match. It's just to, I think it was an old injury that got aggravated, and that is just the worst thing. Yeah, you kind of get caught up in the moment mostly, and I'm not good at asking or pulling them aside. Yeah, and that was just like, I've had some sleepless nights over it actually, which is a bit ridiculous, but that's what I'm saying about this whole mind game, this whole winning, overcoming things in your mind in order to stay healthy, because you can live with so much regret in your life, seriously, which is no use. So maybe I'll just have to try and repeat, but I just feel like there were some things that I could have done at this particular East versus West that I might not be able to do elsewhere. But it's important just to stay sane and say, well, there might come another opportunity, and who knows what that might bring. It might also be right. I mean, for example, I was wanting to meet John Brezink in Denmark last March, and he was looking at flights. He wasn't not interested at all. The truth was partly that to get from Denmark to Hardanger Open was pretty much it was actually a lot more complicated, and probably also a bit more expensive than traveling to Istanbul from Denmark. It was just ridiculous, and it is ridiculous, but up in the mountains, beautiful place, so whatever. But if I had that visit in March and tried to do a portrait of John before he'd achieved all the things he's done since March, then the portrait wouldn't have been near as good as it could in the future be. True. Something I said is true partly at conventions, etc. in general. Yeah, it's really difficult to know when are you actually bugging somebody. And I don't really feel like I'm starstruck as a person. I know that, for example, John is he's a human being like the rest of us, and he can do something exceptional. And some people would also think, Leah, you're so good at drawing and painting. I'm surprised you're even spending time with us. And I'm like, flipping heck, if you can't separate your giftings from your behaviour and say, you behave in a way that you appreciate being treated, and your giftings are kind of, they are gifts, so they're not something that you necessarily can be totally overly prideful over. But, when you don't know somebody, I don't know John, do I? So I've talked to him for an hour on that Zoom call, and that was easy. That was really nice and easy. But when he kind of got cold feet and retreated from everything. You know, why did he do that? What do I know about his character? And I know that he also retreated from arm wrestling and was not going to pool again and all this jazz, and then he ended up changing his mind and see where he is now. So I also know he's capable of changing his mind, and with pretty amazing results. So don't need to be totally afraid of approaching him again, because he could change his mind, and now that he's achieved more, it would make a more interesting portrait. And when I was there, yeah, thank you for thinking it was extremely cool that I went to the event. Yes, and one of the reasons I thought, okay, now I will go, because Tony Christensen, the Lone Star from Denmark, he was going, and he asked me if I wanted to go, and I was like, okay. He knows some of these arm wrestlers from when he was arm wrestling more frequently on the international scene. And I thought, well, if he's there, it's going to be easier to make contact with people. That was my initial thinking, and I think it's still kind of true. It just helped to convince me to go. But yeah, it's difficult to know when you are bugging somebody that you don't know, compared to making them feel appreciated. And I know that John is, you know, even his good friend Robert Baxter, who I had a nice conversation with, he did say, you know, John doesn't feel like he's the best, and he's a humble guy. So this must be what he's really like. So there must be other reasons why conversation with him didn't flow. And you know, whatever. Could be that he was shy about me being shy. It could be something completely different. It could be, don't know. Don't even want to go there. The thing that motivates me when I'm doing portraits is generally, you know, is there something interesting and different about this person? Is there something that is not as it would seem at the first sight? You know, can I be surprised by somebody? I did say to John, you know, one of the things that I find interesting about you is contrasts. I like painting contrasts. So if somebody appears one way and they are another way, that is just down my street. You don't think John takes compliments very well at all. I think he's shy in that regard, where he doesn't know how to react. I'm kind of that way, like that myself. Tell me about yourself, Madao C. Who are you, and what do you do, and what do you get compliments for that you find difficult to receive? I don't think I've been overly complimentary to John. I think I've been pretty down to earth with him. We had a really good conversation also about things like the war had just broken out in Ukraine, and we talked a bit about that. So it was all pretty comfortable conversation. But then again, I've written a rap. If he sees that, I don't know what he's going to make of that. It's quite fun. It's humorous, but it's definitely complimentary. Have you seen it? Madao-C or Mado-C? Madal? Have you seen my Jean Brezink rap? Quite funny. When I first discovered John Brasink. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. He mowed through the young guys practicing, and Ryan Bowen thought it was amazing. His big baggy dad shirt, glasses and grey hair were surely hiding some kind of truth that was out there. Seek and ye shall find, it says in the big book. So I typed in his weird name and searched on YouTube. Oh, yeah, I was a dance guy. But yeah, I just get a bit awkward when being complimented. I'm doing a bunch of art and graphics design. Oh, cool. You saw it. Good stuff. Thanks. So, Tony, when we stumbled across John at the cafe called Monica, he asked John if he'd seen my rap, and John said no, and I think he genuinely hadn't seen it. So I tried to explain to him a little bit about it. I have sent him a link. I haven't heard anything, and I don't know if I ever will. But what do you think? Do you think the rap would go down well with John, or too much? La la la. He looks young. I made him too young. Maybe that line just helped a little bit. So, what kind of graphic stuff do you do? Bor du I Danmark så? Bor du I København endda? Funny, when I do these drawings here, I feel more and more like I'm doing, I have a style that wouldn't be completely wrong in a courtroom. So maybe I should apply for a job as a courtroom artist. Which is actually, I think somebody suggested it a long time ago, so maybe I really should apply. Because that's a very thick eyebrow. Bit too much. John is private, yeah, but he's also extremely open. I mean, the things that he has just shared on his YouTube channels is like amazingly open, my opinion. Even to do with, for example, when he started back in arm wrestling, he said, he was having trouble with drinking too much, which is a really open thing to share. And recently he said, he's gotten better at controlling that, which is great news. But whether it's been replaced with something else, who knows. But I think John is extremely open, and that's maybe also something that, I'm also very open. I kind of find it hard to not just say things as they are. Some people maybe want you to protect yourself more. So, courtroom style of art, indeed. See you in court. Calling, okay. So not just next door. Well, I go to Copenhagen Power Poolers, and Copenhagen Power Poolers is a natty club, so we play by the natty rules, which is no problem for me because I don't have any plans to intake any funny stuff. Personally, I wouldn't feel it was something to be proud of. And I know some of the older poolers, they're on TRT and stuff like this, and I also understand, you know, it's really hard, and I'm going to hit that at some point, you know, that feeling of, doesn't matter how hard I try, I'm not able to keep the same strength that I had, and it could have happened any time, and not looking forward to that. I mean, I have been strong all the time, you know, without having to work for it, and only at the age of 40 did I start to make an effort to train, and it's definitely given benefits. But you know, if I had done that when I was younger, in my prime, so to speak, how strong could I actually have gotten? That's a good question for myself. Okay, in this picture that I'm looking at of Effie and Eidspec, the referees are all over their hands and I can hardly see any of his bodies, which is really annoying. Let me see. I just do a bunch of miniature stuff at the moment, like 1/6 scale Barbie furniture and that sort of thing for my nieces. Nice. Yeah, it's definitely like that with me too. I'm 35 and wish I had gotten into shape a lot sooner. But are you in shape now? Because better late than never. I'm 45 and I'm absolutely stronger than I've ever been. For my 45th birthday, I did 45 push-ups. I didn't do it at when I had the camera rolling. I only made it to 43 and a half, but it's close enough that maybe you'd believe me. And then in the evening, for some weird reason, I managed to do 45 straight, even though I'd already done 43 plus 30 in the gym. I still somehow managed to do 45 in the evening, and I think my best achievement so far is to have done 46 with my feet slightly elevated, which was, oh, you saw that. 45 push-ups. Very frustrating to collapse before getting the last two. Grr. Okay, so I seem to, yeah, things aren't going to be perfect, are they? Right. You started hitting the gym, hiking and changing your lifestyle 5 or 6 years ago. Okay, well, you're still quite young then. I made it to 40. It actually started with my dear addict friend relapsing, but before he relapsed, he told me about some morning exercises that he does, the 5 Tibetan things, and I don't do all 5. I do about 3 of them quite regularly. But when he first relapsed and he was like gone out of my life, it was one way that I kept him alive in my life, if you like, not alive physically, but in my life. And so it was the first time I actually stuck at any kind of exercise. And then I remember in my kitchen there's this beam that had a hole in it that you could hold onto it, and so I grabbed onto that and just swung my legs up, and they went way further up than I expected. And I was like, oh, flip, okay, this is actually giving me something, and that motivated me to do more. So, but just in terms of just genetics, I mean, arm wrestling has really also just proven to me how people are so differently built, and that you can be one way, have one strength and another weakness. I mean, for example, my sister, she's got crazy strong toes. I gotcha. What was the I gotcha? Anyway, crazy. My sister's got crazy strong toes, and she's always had them ever since she was maybe 4 or something. She could stand on her absolute tiptoes, like what nobody can normally do. She can still do it at the age of 38, even though she doesn't particularly train it. She just checks that she can still do it, and I cannot. I can apply maybe 35, 38 kilos to my tiptoes. I can absolutely not stand on them. While my fingers, you know, I pulled out a 60 kilo grip strength on my test without having done any grip strength training, just naturally. Yeah, she's got natural ballerina toes. She's a bit stiff otherwise, except for when she went to gymnastics, she got a bit more flexible. Yeah, my friend, yeah, it's very sad. I mean, he's still alive, but after about 5 years of just hoping that he would get to the place where it's going to be, yeah, where you can start to trust him, he just kept relapsing, kept making wrong decisions, and one of the signs of madness is doing the same thing and expecting different results. And addicts are very known for that, and also not really finding, you know, they can't really necessarily take responsibility like they ought to for where they're at. And, you know, that's hard for all of us, but imagine if you have absolutely zero self-esteem, and on top of that you have to confess that you are just not able to figure out your life, and you need to take all sorts of precautions. It's like letting go of the last little bit of self-worth or self-esteem that you might be clutching onto. So I still hope, pray that he will get to the place where he can flourish. That would be amazing. Natural ballerina. Okay, 60 is good. 60 is very good for a man, apparently. 64 and up is considered excellent for a man. Now that I've trained my grip strength, I might have already mentioned this, but I can shut a gripper with 2 fingers. A 60 kilo gripper. Let's see if I can do it today. Don't know if I need to have a rest for it to work, but let's just try. Okay, so this is me, and this is a gripper. I'm going to put my fingers here. Fit. 2, 53, 4, 5, 6, Okay, I think that was 57 with a 60 kilo gripper. Yeah, so you can do 2 to 3 reps on the Captain Crush 2 now, and 10 to 12, 1.5. Can you remind me what kilo they are? Because I've not quite worked out. I'd like to try a 1.5 or a 2 and see where I'm at compared to that. Clearly, shutting this with 2 fingers is not the same as shutting, being able to use all the fingers on double as much. Anyway, I can also, in principle, do it with my left, but it's very much about trying to get it in the right position. Oh, ouch! It's a stiff beast. Right, back to my drawing. .5 is 76 kilos. Okay, two is 88. That's very good. Nice one. Yeah, 1.5. I wonder if I could, what I could do with that. Could I shut it? Could I close that? You know, back last year, I just made some kind of comment on some arm wrestling forum that I had a grip strength of 60 kilos, and I was kind of like bombarded with responses of no way. I saw, well, someone started to kind of maybe believe me when I told them what kind of machine I was using. It was at the Experimentarium in Copenhagen, Experimentarium. Anyway, someone said, well, that is flipping amazing, because I saw a steroid woman, 6 feet tall, who had a grip strength of 50 kilos. So I started to doubt myself, and I have hardly dared to go try a gripper of any sort, in case I found out that it was wrong what I guessed, or not what I guessed, but what I'd gotten from the Experimentarium test. So it's only recently that I had to pull myself together. Yeah, the difference between 1.5 and 2 is huge. Yeah. It's only recently that I have had the guts to actually try a gripper. It was because it was in the Tia Boutique, Flying Tiger. It's like, oh, look at that. Gonna give it a go. And my first attempt, I wasn't sure I was actually completely closing it. The second time I was closing it just fine. So I don't know what happened that day. And then closed it with just the 2 fingers. So apparently there's a second person in the chat. Show yourself. Who are you? So in this image I can see that 8 spec he is kind of a little bit more bent in the knees, so that probably fits with regards to the height that I'm seeing here. It might have just been a split second, but hey. You can definitely see it though, your hands, fingers. What can you see? Can you see my hands? What can you see? I think that sticks just a bit too tall. I'm going to cut it down a bit. Looks good strength-wise. It's funny, when I was talking to John about my hand, he was saying that I've got a long hand this way, which is good for arm wrestling. And then I sort of turned it over and went, and he laughed. I don't know if he was laughing at that, but maybe. My spider fingers. Since starting to go to arm wrestling, I've definitely gotten a bit more meat on here. The claw. Indeed. Don't mess with the claw. It's interesting again, another thing that you learn from arm wrestling is that you can be stronger in one arm but better connected on the other. And last time I was at arm wrestling practice, the guy I was practicing with, he said you have better connection with your left, even though you're stronger with your right. Oh, pumping up the veins a little bit now. Which is both fascinating and a little bit annoying, because you want your best arm to also have the best connection, don't you? But I have arm wrestled my flatmate who's left-handed, and sitting down arm wrestling, I think I gave him a better fight left-handed to start with. Don't know. I haven't arm wrestled him for a while because I'm afraid that after all this time going to arm wrestling training, that it will have made no difference whatsoever. I want to just make sure that I feel a little bit like I've improved before I give him another bout. Because he seems to be a natural presser. He seems to naturally be able to press. Another guy at the club, he's also a natural presser. Simon Sonne. He hasn't as yet met somebody that can give him a fight through his press. That's not to say they don't exist. Of course they do. But he's not met them yet. The claw. Yeah, I found that to be true too. It's weird because I feel like my left is better at low weights, more reps, but I'm a lot stronger on my right when using grippers. Yeah. So you have more endurance in your left maybe? I feel like my left is better at low weight, more reps. Yeah. And who would have known all these things if it weren't for arm wrestling? Yeah, more endurance. So why would one hand have more endurance? When did you start watching or getting into arm wrestling? Well, okay, so I actually started first getting into climbing, and I watched Magnus Midtmø, the Norwegian climber, and one of the first videos I saw of him had a guest on it called Devon Larratt. And Devon Larratt seemed like quite a charismatic character, and I quite enjoyed his company, if you like. It's like, I wonder who this guy is. So I followed Devon Larratt into the sweaty pit of arm wrestling and came across good old Schoolboy. And Schoolboy was a monster slayer. And I do like contrasts. I like when things aren't as you expect them. And he was able to beat some massive guys. Must have clearly been on steroids. And lots of it. And so I tried to follow him. So I was kind of up till Schoolboy for a wee while, and then came to some kind of after pool event on YouTube, and then this grey-haired guy with glasses, as you saw in my rap. I mean, my rap is very straight, telling the truth about how it all happened, but the information about Schoolboy is of course not in it. So Devon led me to Schoolboy, and Schoolboy led me to this guy called John Brezink, okay, and then the rest is in the rap. I was like, okay, that's interesting. This guy is definitely unusual, and okay, so maybe he was on androgel when he beat Dennis, but Dennis was a huge steroid monster. How on earth could this much smaller guy give him any kind of fight? I just couldn't really understand it. And so I got kind of initially quite taken by it, and then, you know, he was retired, there was nothing new to watch, so it went a little bit in the background again, and then suddenly I saw this match between good old John Brezink and Chance Shaw appear on my screen somehow, and that's when it was just like the rabbit hole. Then I was just totally into finding out. As for arm wrestling myself, well, I've never, you know, I've just do the whole sit down arm wrestling, like at school and things like that, and I was obviously a difficult competitor even for guys back then. I beat my cousin when he was 28 and I was only 20. He was mortified into training, so he got quite nice and strong, which I'm sure his wife didn't mind. And when I was maybe even younger, maybe 18, maybe even younger than that, I beat a guy who used to play rugby. When he was, at that time, he was a church minister, so obviously, and he played golf, so I mean, swinging his arms a bit, but I somehow managed to beat him at arm wrestling. So I didn't really arm wrestle a lot of girls, and quite frankly, I don't think I've ever lost to a girl until I went to arm wrestling at the club, and there was just one day a powerlifter girl came along, and I beat her several times. I would say I maybe had a slight upper hand, but you may also have seen that match, but she was really, really strong. I think she's stronger than me in the gym, but Leah Warrior Princess, that's me. Yeah, I'm not quite the Star Wars princess. I don't just sit around looking helpless. I'm a fighter at heart, and I ain't backing down till I produce some art, which is what I'm doing just now. But actually, I was very shy as a kid. Really shy. Kind of like Effie's green trousers and top. Don't know if I want to turn them in any other colour. So, to do with being able to do great things, or things that most people don't feel they can do, and staying humble about it. I wonder if any of it can play back to, I think it's the right way to be. I don't think pride over good in this world, but I could also imagine that also either upbringing or maybe having experienced being treated in an unkind manner. I was often made fun of at school. I kind of got so used to it that it was no big deal. And I wonder if that's also impacted me to not become full of myself. Got to run some errands. Good. It was fun talking to you too. So go weekend to you. Thank you for joining me on this first attempt at doing a live. So, what do we say? Are we getting there? So I prepared these pieces of paper or card before I went to East versus West, because it's quite nice just to have something else going on in the background. If you don't fill the whole page, then there's still something going on. It creates a bit of drama, which is nice. I like some drama. Another cup of tea. Okay. So I don't know which way around people are seeing this, but in case it's this way. In case it's this way. Mm. Mhm. Nice. Maybe I can just hint at something being black on this clips here. Let me. Got a bit of light there, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know. Don't know if that's improved it at all. Not so much, perhaps. See, I'm not a great decision maker, but when you're making art, you kind of have to make decisions all the time. You know what to paint, how to paint it, what colours to use, what composition to make. So somehow, I seem to manage anyway to create something. I'm not really keen on making him completely. That's not improvement. Not really all that interested in making it totally black. But I'm not sure I'm impressed with what I just did there. Decidedly unimpressed. So, anyone else want to talk to me? So, when John was on the table, I didn't draw because I really wanted to just watch. But I think I will try and capture a moment from that match, all the same, and turn it into a sketch. That's not good. Oh well. You have to be careful with these pens if you don't watch out and the top gets all gunky. Good thing is you can turn the nib round. Hey, presto, you get a new top. Something like that. Okay. I am I'm assuming that I'll come back and do some more of this, even though it's slow moving, I know. But finish this one off, and then I'll probably do another session at some point. Oh, yeah. Okay. Maybe I should give him some kind of dark stuff going on with his trousers, but yeah, it's like, oh, you know. Okay, so he's lower under the table at the moment, I think, than his counterpart. Seeing Effie live, I was just like, okay, that guy is broad. He's a broad guy. Right. Here we are, that's 2 hours, and here's a little sketch. And there'll be more to come. But 2 hours in one podcast when who wants to see me? Yes, it's maybe too much. Oh, I wonder if I can turn this round. Okay, that'll give a better picture. There we go. So that's the one, and then there's this one. And this one to do a bit more too. But that's how it was during the match. So you've got Greg Tullier down there and Paul Linn, both of them shouting instructions to Corey, and there's a third guy from the east sitting down at the right, and I don't know who he is. And then you've got Corey, and I believe that was Farid. So anyway, thank you for anyone who watched my first attempt at doing this. Thanks for hanging around. See you another time.